So you're playing Genshin, you're doing some temples, and you get Chasca. Now, what do you get with Chasca besides the newest 5-star character that is going to put Wanderer out of a job? Well, Chasca is a bill-wielding Anemo user who is the newest Natlan 5-star. And in this video, we are going to look at the basics of Chasca, how her skill works, how her burst works, all of that fun stuff. So before we look at how her skill and her burst work, we do need to talk about the Night Souls mechanic. Now, I know a lot of us are going to be accustomed to the Night Souls mechanic now, but just in case you're not, I'm going to do a quick explanation. Now, whenever we use Chasca's skill, it is going to put her in Night Soul's Blessing. It is going to give her this little bar next to her right here that is going to show how long we get to use her skill. She's going to kind of fly up on this massive gun thing, and it is going to tick down. In this case, some people's Night Soul's Blessing states ticks up like Kinich, but this is one that ticks down like Kachina and Milani, where once it runs out, we can no longer fly on her gun. Now, because we are in Natlan, we do have something called Phlogiston, and that is this orange bar above her HP bar. Once we have used up all of her Night Soul points, it will start to take away the Phlogiston bar. This bar does not exist outside of Natlan, so keep that in mind. So this trial Chasca, the way that Genshin has been doing these in Natlan, is that we have a way to kind of use their overworld exploration mechanic to show how it works. So they have given us this wonderful obstacle course to fly through, and it's actually pretty smooth. I mean, it works just like Wanderer. You know, spacebar to go up, left control, and the keyboard to go down. It's actually pretty good. You can sprint, you can do all that stuff. Sprinting, moving faster is going to use up more of those Night Soul points or more of the Phlogiston bar, just like Wanderer would use up his stamina. Now, once we fly through this amazing maze that was oh so difficult, we are going to get to the enemies, and now we can start talking about her actual kit. So her normal attacks are going to be pretty standard. They're going to do physical damage with her bow. So if you do a charge attack, it is going to infuse it with Anemo, just like all the other Anemo characters. And if you hit an enemy that has an element on them or near them, it is going to swirl the element, causing extra damage. Now we're going to talk about her skill, which is where it really starts to kind of come into her kit. If we use her skill, we are going to, of course, get the Night Soul's bar. We are going to fly up on the gun, and we are going to have two different ways of attacking. We're going to have a tap and a hold on our normal attack button. The tap is just going to hit the enemy in front of us, dealing Anemo damage. Again, this will swirl any elements present if there are elements present. Now, the more important version, and the version you're going to use more of, is going to be the hold version, where you are going to be able to mark up to 6 enemies. And once you hold it down and you start marking up the enemies, you're going to notice that these little bullets are appearing, these symbols right here, 1 through 6. It is going to charge until it either reaches 6 or until you let go of the button. Now, the first two, 1 and 2, are going to always be Anemo. 3 has a chance to be one of the elements in your party. 4, 5, and 6 will be the elements in your party, as long as your party members are one of 4 elements, being Pyro, Hydro, Electro, and Cryo. It does not work with Dendro, Geo, or other Anemo characters, so keep that in mind. Now, this third one has a chance to be turned into it, and that is going to come from one of her passives, where depending on the elements in your party, if you have a certain number of certain elements, then it gives it a chance to turn. So let's say that you have a mono Anemo team with Chasca, Kazuha, Jean, and Sucrose. None of these are going to be changing color, they're going to all be Anemo. Now let's say that you have Kazuha, Jean, Chasca, and Diona. This last one, number 6, will be Cryo. There is a 33% chance that number 3 will also be Cryo, if you have like Chasca, Kazuha, Fistule, and Diona. Then number 6 and 5 will be one of the 2 elements randomly. You do not get to control it. And there is a 66% chance, or 2/3 of the time, that number 3 will be one of the 2 elements. Again, it's random, you don't get to control it. Now, if we look at our actual party, Chasca, Fistule, Xiangling, and Diona, then 4, 5, and 6 will be one of those 3 elements. Again, it's random. You do not get to control it. It doesn't matter what order your party is in. It is random. At that point, because you have 3 party members that are of one of those 4 elements I mentioned earlier, number 3 will always be one of those 3 elements. Again, it's random. You do not get to control it. Now let's get back at talking to the marking mechanic. This is not like Nahida, where you want to mark as many enemies as you can and apply the symbol, because If you were to mark 6 different enemies, each one of these bullets is going to hit a different enemy. And if they're not close enough together, you're not going to swirl the elements, right? The last two, 1 and 2, are always going to be animo. The way that this is designed is that your elements shoot out first, and then the last two are going to be animo, first in, last out. So the order that they're going to load in is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The order that they're going to shoot out is 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And they're going to hit the enemies in the order that you mark them. So if you mark enemy A and enemy B, and go back and forth, so like 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, then it's going to hit like, let's say we've got cryo, electro, pyro, pyro, animo, animo. Then it's going to go cryo, electro, pyro, pyro. So we're going to get a melt reaction and we're going to get an overload reaction. Animo, animo, swirls on both of them. So that is going to be a much better way than doing like 1 pyro, 1 electro, 1 cryo, 1 swirl, 1 pyro, right? If it's too spread out, you're not going to get the damage. And you're going to see that as this is kind of going on behind me, you're going to notice that if we target a single enemy, we're going to have a ton of numbers. If we target a ton of different reactions, right? If we target as many enemies as we can, each enemy is only going to be hit once. And if they're not close enough, the swirls aren't going to do anything. So you have to keep that in mind whenever you're picking your targets. And also remember that it's all random as to what 3, 4, 5, and 6 will be. Now, you do have some control over it in a weird way. Let's think that you had like Chasca, Dia, Layla, and Charlotte. So 1 pyro, 2 cryos. You're only going to be causing melt reactions. Now, whether that's a forward or reverse melt, you're not going to know until it loads all the way up. But if those 2 elements, between 3 characters, 2 elements, are the only ones present, you're going to only be causing melt reactions, which are going to be great. That's, a forward melt and a forward vaporize are the 2 highest multipliers in the game. So that's what you want. You either want the melts or you want the vaporized reactions. Yes, you can have something closer to like this party where it's going to be much more like a rainbow team, as it's so lovingly called. But if you want to kind of maximize it, then you can do either like a pyro, cryo, and hydro, or a pyro, cryo, cryo, a pyro, pyro, cryo, a pyro, hydro. I would kind of try to stick with 1 reaction and try to get as many forwards and as few reverses as you can. So maybe have like pyro, 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 hydro. So the likelihood of you getting pyro first is higher, and then getting hydro further down the line is better. Or pyro, cryo, cryo. So your likelihood of getting cryo is higher, and then you can get a forward melt as much as possible, right? Statistically, it should work out that way. If you have 2 of the element that you want applied first, statistically the likelihood of getting that as your first bullet is increased, and then having the reacting element follow it is also increased. So that's probably what I would do if I'm thinking about this correctly. There's a lot more information that I would normally do. I'm not going to make a second video on Chasca, so I'm trying to get a ton of information on this one. So we've talked about her skill, we've talked about one of her passives. So now we're going to talk about her burst. And what her burst is going to do is that it's essentially going to fire a big bullet that's going to break into 6 tinier bullets, and it is going to be the elements in your party, 2 per element of the 6. So in this one, we're going to have, so in this party that we were actually given, it is going to have 2 pyro, 2 electro, 2 cryo. If we did the Dia, Layla, Charlotte example, it's going to be 2 pyro, 4 cryo. So that's going, and it's just going to do kind of like an instance of damage, right? And that's really all that this is, just like another instance of damage, nothing too crazy. Now, this does kind of play into her second passive, though. That says that whenever a nearby party member triggers a Night Souls burst, which is anybody in the party with a Night Souls character, so anybody in this party would be considered a Night Souls burst, Chasca will fire a burning Sun Hunt shot at a nearby enemy, dealing Night Soul aligned animo damage, equal to a lot more of her regular damage. It's going to be an increased kind of damage. And then if you have the party members, it will be converted to deal the Night Soul damage of one of those elements randomly. You're not going to get to choose which element, but it's going to deal an increased amount of damage as well. So every now and then you're going to see like a random 55k melt pyro damage kind of go off, or a much higher overloaded or much higher superconduct you're going to see an instance of damage that is much higher than what you've been seeing. Right after we use somebody's burst, that is what this passive is. Now, I want to point something out. If you look at the very, very bottom of this passive, it says the damage done this way is considered charged attack damage. All of the damage done through her skill is also considered charged attack damage. Does that mean that you want to level up her normal attack talent because it's normal attack and charged attack and plunging attack? No. Because if you click the skill attributes tab, you're going to notice that the skill calculates the damage on its own. It doesn't refer back to normal attacks. All the damage that happens to the skill is skill damage. So you still want to focus on leveling your skill talent. So why does all of this say charged attack? Well, if we look at something like her signature buffs charged attack damage. So now that I think that I've explained her kit pretty well, I think I covered all of it as best as I could. Now we're going to look at the build of the Chasca that Genshin gives us for the trial. I've been really enjoying the build that they've been giving us, kind of because it shows you something that you may not have think of, and this one actually does show something that you may not have thought of. So we're going to look at the Chasca. So Chasca is level at 80 out of 80 with almost 2400 attack and only 105 EM. That's a little weird for a character that does a lot of swirl damage, right? Well, that's because we don't want to build EM. We want to build attack on her. We don't care about the swirl damage. We want her normal damage to go up. Crit rate 80 over 214 because of the Obsidian Codex artifact set. With weapons being her signature, getting up crit damage, this increases her attack as well as her charged attack damage and elemental burst damage as well. 4-piece Obsidian Codex. Now we are going to look at these artifacts and you're going to see pretty standard crit rate, crit damage, EM, ER, attack percent, but she is running not only an attack sands, but also an attack goblet. Because she's not doing a ton of animo damage, we probably don't want to put an animo goblet on her. You might be able to kind of min-max it, and if you're really, really wanting a forward melt to do a ton of your damage, then put like a pyro goblet. I don't know how that would work, but that's something that we can look at later on, or if you know the answer, put it down in the comments. Like, I can't change her artifact, so I can't test it, but I think that running an attack sands and attack goblet would be better, unless you, again, like I said, you wanted to try to min-max it and like shoot for forward vapes or forward melts and do like a pyro goblet, then that would increase the damage of that melt, and I wonder how that would work. So let me know down below if that is something. So that is going to be it for this video. Kooky has green hair. I have green hair that's starting to turn kind of yellowish, and I will see you in the next one.